Range trading in the US and uncertainties over impact of AI keep stocks in check. Metals and PSU banks seek out gains while IT and realty drag.
Dr. Reddy's MD GV Prasad tells CNBC-TV18 most regulatory issues for its weight loss drug in Canada are resolved and a launch is likely by the month of May. He adds that consumer healthcare is an area of focus for acquisitions.
Midcap outperforms select stocks seeing sharp moves. E2E Networks jumps after Nvidia announces a tie-up for AI factories, while Aurobindo Pharma slides on serious US FDA observations after inspecting one of its units.
IT staffing firms TeamLease and Quest Corp say entry-level hiring has shrunk, but hiring spends remain robust as firms are willing to pay top dollar for experienced AI, ML and cybersecurity professionals. They add that reskilling is the only way to bridge the big demand-supply gap in new technologies. Very good afternoon. Welcome to Halftime Report on CNBC-TV18. I'm Ekta Batra and with me is Vinny Motiwala. Well, it's turning out to be a session where we're seeing an absolutely quiet session, at least for the frontline indices. But the banks seem to be doing a smidge better, you would have to say today. So higher by around 100 odd points currently for the Bank Nifty. IT continues to dominate in terms of headlines. So we have the IT index, which is seeing pressure in today's trading session as well, despite all of the headlines coming out from the AI summit. But separately, we do have a lot of stocks which are buzzing in the broader markets. And what stands out is a positive advance decline ratio. So around 2,000 stocks advancing to around 1,891 stocks declining on the Bombay Stock Exchange. So that's how things stack up in today's trade.
Hi, Ekta. Yes, interesting there. We'll keep an eye out on that advance decline line as well, right? Which you're also on the screen right now because, they are going to flip-flop. Is it going to be more decline versus advances second half of the trading session? That's what we'll watch out for. But metals, PSU banks, FMCG among the top sectoral gainer today. And obviously, Ekta also said a lot of individual names. Let's not forget Network Technologies. That's buzzing in trade up almost 12% as well. But on the show, we will focus on buzzing stocks and big movers in the trade today. Stay tuned in for that. Then we're going to be putting the spotlight on the latest developments in our segment, What's Trending, and Sunil Kaul's view on AI's play as well as its effect on the markets. We will bring you a conversation with the management of Intellect Design on AI trends from the India AI Summit, and a little later we'll connect with the management of BHP in our Commodity Corner segment as well. But first up, let's go across to Gaurav, who's here to tell us which are the important stocks that are moving around in today's trading session. Good afternoon, Gaurav.
Well, good afternoon. If you look at the stocks and the movement, first let's talk about the Nifty Metals segment and specifically the stocks like Hindustan Copper, Jindal Stainless and Tata Steel. If you look at all these stocks for the last 2 days, we saw there was some kind of pressure, but today we are seeing some bounce back from that pressure point. And if you look at the index itself, the Nifty Metals index is up more than 1% in a trade today. Other than that, look at PSU banks. If you look at the past history as well, there have been some rally which was seen in PSU banks and it is continuing even in this day as well, with PNB, Indian Overseas Bank, Maharashtra Bank, Union Bank as one of the key contributors and key leaders in this rally within the sector. If you look at the cigarette stocks like ITC and Godfrey Phillips, there also we are seeing some kind of uptick. In fact, Godfrey Phillips is up more than 10%, and the key reason being that there are talks that the price range of cigarette is increased, and that is something that market is appreciating, and that is what we are seeing in the stocks as well. And at the same time, let's also not forget about the stock called NDL Venture. Now CCI they have given an approval for the stock to merge with Hinduja Leyland Finance, and this is something which is keeping the stock in buzz. On the losing side, if you look at Nifty IT, despite the AI summit which is going on, we are seeing some kind of pressure in the Indian IT segment, specifically the companies like LTIMindtree, Persistent, Infosys. All of these companies are down more than 2%. And lastly, let's also not forget about the paint segment, because there was a note from Macquarie which suggests that there will be some moderate pace of recovery in second half of FY26. And at the same time, if you look at stocks like Asian Paints, Kansa Nerolac, Berger Paints, all of these stocks are currently under pressure. So all in all, we are seeing some losers as well as the winners in a day. So let's see how it ends for all these stocks in a day today.
Okay, all right, Gaurav, thanks very much for that. So yes, definitely quite a buzzing screen you have. But let's in fact welcome Jay Thakur, who's joining in for a tech check on the markets today. Jay, hi, welcome to the show. Well, it's turning out to be a quiet day, you'd have to say, but specific stocks stand out. So first, how would you approach the key indices? Do you think that maybe the mid caps are going to see pressure as the second half goes on?
Hi, good morning to you. Good afternoon to you, rather. Vinay, I would say that, see, definitely, Nifty is quite range bound, and the range has been broad as well. I mean, it's 2% kind of a range, 25,500 on the downside to 26,000 on the upside for this monthly series, I would say. Ekta. And 26,000 is key going forward. I mean, beyond that, you would really see the upward momentum, in fact, gaining, and, you would see further fuel to the markets. Probably, thereafter, Nifty heads towards the lifetime high against. Else, it's likely to consolidate within this range. Only what has happened is one thing which has happened is the India VIX, which recently last week had gone up. On account of some correction which we saw in the markets, and thereafter markets have gone sideways. But then somehow India VIX has somewhat formed a base around the levels of 11.5 and 12. So unless we don't see it falling further below those levels, there could be some volatility as well around the monthly expiry. But having said that, I would say that Nifty IT continues to be laggard, and we see continuous short build up there, and that is one index which is likely to weigh some pressure on Nifty. But on the flip side, why Nifty is getting range bound is that since IT is negative, it's weighing pressure on the index. On the flip side, the Bank Nifty, the metals, they are in fact supporting the Nifty. We have seen the PSU banks leading from the front, and out there within the NBFC and the life insurance space as well, we are seeing a good upward momentum. So that's 40% of the market, which is helping the Nifty to go upside. And there is some bounce back or some support from the FMCG names as well. Now, if you see Marico, in fact, Colgate Palmolive also bouncing back from these levels, ITC bouncing back rather since past couple of trading sessions. So I see that this range is likely to be held at least until the monthly expiry, and unless we don't get a clear breakout from this 500 points range. It's rather to be stock specific, and on the long side, it would be metals, PSU banks, and the selective FMCG names is what I would say one can focus on, at least in the short term.
Okay, selective FMCG names are some of the names that one could see in the short term as well, or look out for in the short term. Jay, good afternoon. Any specific names, whether would you say FMCG names that you would suggest, or any other names as well?
Definitely, among the FMCG, I would say that Marico, which has clearly seen good long build-up, the stock had actually consolidated since quite long, and finally now we are seeing a good breakout on the upside. So I think 820 to 850 could be a good positional target for Marico from the long perspective. The data is quite positive out there, and within the same sector, I would say Colgate Palmolive, which is absolutely opposite. I mean, this is one stock, Marico, which you see at 52-week high, whereas Colpal is at 52-week low. But why that is looking positive? Because out there we are seeing some positive divergence, and there has been a lot of shorts which have got accumulated so far. And since the stock has formed this base around the levels of 2100, the risk reward is quite favorable from the point of view of short covering, Vinny. So this would be from the point of view of short covering, wherein one can target 2350 to 2500 until March. These are the two names. And from the metal pack, I think that Jindal Steel, which has definitely seen a good long build up, and this is one stock from the ferrous names, which I think can inch towards the levels of 1300 positionally. So Jindal Steel for a target of 1300 with a stop loss below 1190. I mean, 1200 and 1220, as far as Feb series is concerned, that is where we saw a good call base. And the stock is trading quite well above those levels comfortably on a closing basis as well. So I think there is a good chance of call unwinding, and which can help the stock to inch towards 1300. So these are the three stocks I think within the FNO space one can look out for.
Okay. All right, Jay, we're going to leave it on that note. Thanks very much for joining in and giving us all of that perspective on the technicals of the market. We need to take a short break with the news that the Nifty is absolutely flat. But as you can see, the IT stocks continue to remain under pressure in today's trading session as well. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, for the markets, it's extremely quiet, but let's talk about our What's Trending segment and halftime report. We continue to track AI as the dominant theme. This is even as the IT stocks wobble, with the Nifty IT index down nearly 15% this month. And despite the correction, the AI Impact Summit underway in Delhi continues to drive headlines. More importantly, deal momentum with partnerships such as Infosys and Anthropic dominate Mindspace. Joining us now is soon, in fact, is going to be the management of Intellect Design Arena, which has launched HR Teamspace, which is extending its Purple Fabric Enterprise AI on Tap model. We'll understand more of that in just a bit. But before we get to that conversation, let's listen in to Goldman Sachs' Sunil Kaul and what he had to say on the Indian IT and artificial intelligence opportunity. Listen in.
If you look at what has happened in the market in the last few weeks, I think there has been a relentless selling and indiscriminate selling of the software companies, because global investors are basically questioning the terminal value of these companies. And as we know, software adoption at the enterprise level is pretty complex, right? There are winners and losers and different cohorts, and somebody has to provide the cleaner data sets for these AI models to work. Somebody has to drive the enterprise adoption. In the US market, the real issue is not just the terminal value, but the margins for these companies are also at record highs. And so in the next few quarters, until we figure out who is kind of winning, how the business moats are, what the pricing power for these different sectors are, probably there are still going to be uncertainties around this. And so we are not advising clients to buy into the global software companies yet. If you look at the Indian software companies, obviously they have also been under pressure, down 15% or so over the last month or so. Over the past year, given the selling we have seen in Indian equity markets, software companies are down 30%. So we are not expecting absolute sort of large downside from current levels. And in that sense, you can say maybe the stock prices are bottoming out. But our general sense is that, look, the Indian software companies, when you look at it from a relative perspective, they are still a bit more expensive than the global peers. And if anything, that valuation gap has widened because the global peers corrected more than what the Indian software companies recently have corrected, right? And so relative returns, they may still be underperformers. And when we look at the Indian equity market relative to other sectors, we still think some of the domestic pockets are much more compelling. So we're still underweight the broader sector.
Okay, that's the word coming in there from Sunil. But let's move on and bring on board Intellect Design Arena's management right now. And let's welcome on board Arun Jain, Managing Director of the company and Chief Architect at Purple Fabric, joining us now to talk to us about AI impact, as well as in terms of the launch that they've made as well. He's joining us from that India AI Impact Summit as well. Mr. Jain, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We want to talk about three important points: AI opportunity, launch of this HR team space, as well as the strategy now you have for Purple Fabric. So let's start by talking about your the launch that came in yesterday, the HR team space launch. That's through Purple Fabric, and it's in tie-up with Adrenaline E-Systems. Mr. Jain, one, what will this mean for the company in terms of a revenue opportunity? How is the growth that will mean for Purple Fabric as well, and your AI strategy here?
Yeah, so if you have seen that Anthropic has launched Co-work. Co-work is for individual player. So like a co-pilot and co-work, they work for individual efficiency. Now, if you want to look at it, a team has to work to get more efficient. And we launched Teamspace as a product, and we tie up as a first partner, Adrenaline. We'll be partnering with many more companies because our core product is Enterprise Teamspace. It is the outcome of Purple Fabric agent designing system, but putting into Teamspace where they get all sets of agents well organized, with an entire team which is working to improve the productivity of overall team, because we are moving from individual efficiency to team efficiency to drive the productivity metrics. And individual productivity to us is a myth because it doesn't drive the overall enterprise productivity. And that's what Adrenaline is the first partner when we are doing it. Revenue potential is large because HR space, Adrenaline is a leader in HR space. Last 20 years, they are working in HR space. So we partner with them as a first player. We'll be partnering in marketing space. We'll be partnering with other companies in various team spaces. So now we have a team space for government. We have a team space for banking. We have team space for IT services company. So IT service company can have a team space, and we are launching at a very attractive price of 99,500 for 50 user license. So our belief is that every team should have one set of team space with them.
Okay. All right, Mr. Jain, just hold that thought because we do have an important conversation we need to cut across to. Shireen is in conversation with the IT minister and the TCS MD and CEO. Let's listen to that.
Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18 special broadcast here live from the India AI Impact Summit. I'm Shireen Bhan. We're broadcasting from our studios. As you've been noticing, we've been live streaming here for the last several days. It is my pleasure to welcome to our studios here the Minister himself, Ashwini Vaishnav, also with us, K. Krithivasan, the CEO of TCS. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Vaishnav, let me start by talking to you about the milestone that's just been clocked. A record has been created in the Guinness Book of World Records. Please tell our viewers about that.
Our Prime Minister inspired us to involve the students in responsible use of AI. So that's why we reached out to the colleges and spoke with the faculty members as well as the students. And they all came out in large numbers to take a pledge on responsible and ethical use of AI. Guinness was expecting a number of 5,000 for a record. We finally came out with 250,000, 2.5 lakh students taking pledge. And just now Guinness gave us the world record certificate for largest number of people taking pledge to use AI responsibly and ethically.
Well, the certificate is on its way and we should hopefully be able to show it to you by the end of this conversation. But Mr. Vaishnav, speaking about the ethical use of AI, and while this milestone is a significant one, the government has also brought in regulations, including more recently the labeling norms for AI for synthetic content. I want to start with that, sir. That's the first step. How far do you believe the government needs to move on regulation to try and address this issue?
This is very important because when people look at a video, should they trust that video or should they not trust that video? Is that a real video or is that a fake content? That choice in people's minds has to be clearly an informed choice. That's why it's very important that any video which is generated using AI and it's a deep fake, in that case, that label should be there so that people can make the choice whether they want to believe it or not.
Well, moving away from AI and labeling norms and regulation, let's talk about the big theme here, one of the big themes here at the India AI Impact Summit, and that is building out AI infrastructure. And I'll get Krithi to come in on that as well. I know that you've firmly believe that the amount that's been committed to India by the likes of Google, etc., that's only the tip of the iceberg. You expect much more to follow. On the back of the conversations that have happened here, sir, the number you gave me in Davos was about 90 billion. What does it look like for the road ahead?
Over the coming 2 years, we can expect about $200 billion investment in the AI infra layer. And simultaneously, we can expect more than $17 billion in VC funding for the startups and deep tech, especially deep tech startups, in solutions, in applications, in the way AI would be used.
The Qualcomm CEO, and they've just committed $150 million as part of a venture fund to invest in India-led AI startups. The question, though, is will India be one of the fastest growing AI nations from a consumer point of view, or is it also going to be a developer's nation from an AI standpoint?
I think India will be a developer's nation in the sense that we have today a very large IT industry which understands the enterprises very well. We have seen how our IT industry basically solve global problems in the Y2K situation. This one is a much bigger opportunity, in my opinion, where all the global enterprises would be looking up to industry partners who can come into the enterprise, understand the enterprise, look at the potential applications of AI-based solutions, and have that trust, which basically is needed for every enterprise, and create those solutions. And that's where our IT industry stands very strong.
Well, you believe the Indian IT industry stands very strongly. So let's get the picture from the Indian IT services sector itself. Your ambition, Kriti, is of making TCS the largest AI tech services provider in the world.
Absolutely.
And in that context, I want to address the issue that was raised by the minister. Many believe that this is going to be a crisis for India's IT services sector, but the minister says it's going to be an opportunity. We've seen what has happened through the month of February. It's been a pretty brutal correction that we've seen from a market point of view. But do you believe that this is an opportunity for Indian IT to capitalize on and not so much of a risk as it is being made out to be?
Absolutely, Shireen. Like, I agree with the minister. We believe sometimes the bigger the disruption, the bigger the opportunity for us. And so there is some amount of fear-mongering, some amount of lack of understanding. But if you unpeel what happens, there are three broad layers in which AI is impacting the IT industry. One is what we traditionally do. The second is what industries or enterprises have to do to enable themselves to leverage, adopt AI or accelerate their AI adoption. Third is what they can do more with AI. If you look at all these three, the first one, what we traditionally do, there is some productivity being brought in. Like, it can vary from 20%, 30%. But even there, if you talk to the CIOs, they would tell you that this productivity, they're not going to reduce the headcount. Most of the CIOs would say there's so much of backlog they have not handled or catered so far. They would probably try to use the buffer available to cater to the backlog. So even in what we traditionally do, we don't expect a reduction in demand. Then for the enterprises to use AI, they have to get the data estate right, they have to reduce the tech modernization, they have to get the workflows right. There is so much of work to be done. And the third area is that they have to get the models right. Somebody has to build their models, train the models, orchestrate the model, build the agents. And the fourth is the most important. With all that, what new they are going to do. For instance, some of our clients, we are doing a drug discovery using AI, or claims process automation using AI, or ADAS development. There's so much happening, and there's no need to panic. You have to think, sit back, relax, and think properly. There's so much of more work to be done. Every time there's a disruption, the work expands. And the good companies will participate, take a forward-leaning approach, invest in that, and they should be able to increase the pie.
Well, there is no need to panic. That's the word in from K. Krithivasan of TCS. But I also want to talk about what we are seeing Indian IT services companies like yours do. Forge new partnerships. You've just announced a partnership 24 hours ago with AMD to bring the Helios rack to India. And I want to understand from you the rationale for that. And is this going to now mean a pivot for TCS from software also to infrastructure? You've also got the TPG data center.
Yeah, so it's again based on a larger scheme. We believe that you will be able to participate more in the AI ecosystem if you operate across multiple layers. Like Minister eloquently put together, you were there in Davos, the 4 layers, right? The more layers you participate, the more revenue, more value you can add to your customers. So we are looking at participating right from the infrastructure layer. There's the infrastructure layer, there's a model layer, there's the application layer, then there's the intelligence layer. We want to increase our participation in each one of those layers. That's why you see we participating with TPG, then signing up with AMD. We also signed up with some of the design companies. So that's the overall plan.
And in this pivot to infrastructure, how do you see this changing the complexion of TCS going forward?
Definitely it's a pivotal moment for us also. Not only we are investing in infrastructure, we are also getting more acquisitive because this is the area where we have to acquire capability and competency at speed and scale. So we are looking to be more acquisitive as well. So this is fundamentally going to change in a way how we approach infrastructure, how we are looking at capex and.
So more acquisitions likely,
Absolutely.
that is certainly the call. Mr. Vaishnav, I want to also address the issue of sovereignty, and I think that is being linked very closely to what many countries are doing, including India. We, of course, have a frontier model being launched with the support of the government. Sarvam is on course with that. But as you see more and more of this becoming critical to a country's security, to a country's economic security as well, what do you believe the way forward will be? What will our national priorities be?
Sovereignty has multiple dimensions. One of the dimensions is models. Another one is having the infra within the country. And third is having the legal framework. On the legal framework, we have a very balanced legal framework as a part of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. And on the infra, which has to be in India so that we cannot be switched off. So that is right now building up very rapidly as part of our common compute, which is one of the major initiatives under the AI mission. We already have 38,000 GPUs. Another 20,000 GPUs is going to be added in the coming 6 months, and that will substantially increase over the coming months. So that's the second part. And of course, the models have come out very well on so many parameters. They are better than the frontier models coming from big labs, whether they are from whichever geography those labs come from, those models come from. Our sovereign bouquet of models has really turned out to be very good.
Well, sir, speaking of use cases now, and I think that's where the question is, that all of this technology is great, but what are we actually going to use it for? Specifically from a government standpoint, from a citizen's perspective, what can we see? When we talk about UPI, we've seen the benefits accrue to citizens. When we talk about AI, what do you see as being the next wave forward from a citizen's perspective?
So as part of the AI mission, we are creating practically a UPI kind of structure for AI, UPI of AI. And what we are doing there is we are creating a platform or an orchestration layer where multiple models can provide the framework out of which new solutions can be created. Just like the UPI platform provided the opportunity to startups to create the solutions. Similar structure we are creating. Multiple models can be used for creating solutions. We see huge potential in healthcare. In healthcare, we have seen how the Western world basically has very high cost healthcare models. Some countries have even more than 10% of the GDP going into healthcare. Can we create a quality healthcare which is affordable? So that's the objective with which we have approach this topic, and lots of innovative solutions are coming up. Many of them have been displayed in the exhibition here. Then education is another very big focus. Can we have personalized education tools, in a sense AI tutors, specifically for a particular student's needs? That is another thing. Agriculture is a big area in which AI will make very big difference. MSMEs is going to be a big focus. As part of the AI mission, in the next version of it, we will be launching solutions which can then be adopted free of cost by a large number of MSMEs and other citizens, all citizens, which can be then used to improve their lives.
Kriti, speaking of the AI movement, so to speak, one of the critical aspects is going to be the data center build out, and TCS is playing a role there with TPG. Give us a status check on where things currently stand, as well as the road ahead on being able to achieve the kind of targets that you've set out.
Absolutely. See, we have been in advanced conversation with multiple hyperscalers, and we, of course, made the AMD announcement, and we have made discussion with few other AI native companies. You would get to hear them as and when the final agreements are signed. But I can tell you that it's actually moving much faster than what we anticipated.
Much faster than what you anticipated?
Absolutely.
How soon before we hear the next set of announcements from you?
Wait for some time, we'll
Okay,
hear.
okay, we shall wait. But let's talk about the addressable market, because if you believe that this is an opportunity that companies like yours will leverage on, what are we talking about the addressable market for Indian IT services companies like yours?
See, just the infrastructure, Minister just now mentioned. See, we believe what we have the committed capacity is just about 5 gigawatts. But India can, by 2030, will need a capacity of at least 10 gigawatts based on what today's projection. But also considering the fact India's power is cheaper, about 30%, we believe India can become a very important location for global training of models, not just necessarily the inferencing. So the demand will be very high. And the interesting thing is, like AI data center, we believe each gigawatt of AI data center can bring up to almost 40 billion of investment. Okay. The trick is in how much you indigenize this investment, like how much you import, how much you progressively indigenize. The opportunity is huge.
Well, you know, that's an important aspect that Kriti's mentioned there, sir. And I know that the government is focusing on this. We just saw the budget announce that very significant tax holiday to draw in investments into this space. But the indigenization aspect, you know, what can we now expect on the back of what Semicon is doing, coupled with the measures that the AI mission is taking forward?
Already we have interest from various companies. I cannot take the names. They have requested not to take the names at this point of time. They will be making the announcements where many of these companies now want to set up AI server manufacturing facilities in India. So that is one very clear outcome of this budget's announcement of incentives. Second, a large number of world's data will basically come to India to be processed here, and using that data providing the solutions. So that is another very major outcome that we are expecting from this budget announcement. On the indigenization, of course, the semiconductor mission is progressing very well, and we should be seeing one of the plants going into commercial production in the coming weeks itself, which will be basically serving the AI data centers on the memory side. On the logic side, a lot of work is happening. Of course, there are some innovative startups who are looking at providing a solution which can be a game changer in the coming months and years. But still, it's a bit away. But I think that's a very, very encouraging step.
Well, sir, let me ask you, you know, the headlines are screaming that code is being generated by AI, that we're likely to see a white-collar catastrophe and so on and so forth. Industries are going to be disrupted, jobs are going to be disrupted. As a policymaker, how concerned are you about this? And how do you believe we are prepared for this kind of a future, you know, whether we actually see a complete erosion of jobs or we see a replacement of jobs is the question. But as a policymaker today, what concerns you and how do you believe India needs to respond?
Every major technological transition requires very synchronized and very harmonious response from the industry, academia, and government. And Kriti and other industry leaders, they are working on a framework by which the existing workforce can be reskilled and upskilled, and we can create a new pipeline of talent, new pipeline of AI-trained students who can then take the opportunity which is coming up in front of us. So from our perspective, it's very important that we take the right steps in skilling getting the right skills, getting the right upskills, and both MeitY and the industry and the academia, we are all, three of us, we are working in very focused way, and of course along with the Ministry of Education, to make sure that we get the right skills and we get the right framework for upskilling and reskilling our workforce.
You know, the decoupling of headcount and revenue growth has been underway for a while now, and it is only likely to accelerate in an AI-led future. How do you address this challenge, and do you believe that we are going to see an even more significant decoupling going forward?
See, it's not a challenge. Like, it's the way the industry is moving towards, and we have to adapt. And as I said, we are taking all the steps. Like, if you have to look at what is the outcome the customer is looking for, as you pivot to the outcome and you price your product to the outcome, there will be a decoupling. But as I said, we believe the pie will increase. Okay, there will be much more work to be done. And I just want to add to what the minister just now said, because the pie will increase, we believe that more and more people have to be trained in using AI. Yesterday, we conducted a hackathon with the Honorable Minister, and we had 1,500 students who have not done any coding in their life, who have not done any technical background. They came, sat for 1.5 hours. They developed 1,500 apps yesterday in a matter of 2 hours. And we believe this is going to increase. More and more apps will be created, but more need will be generated. It's the increase of overall pie for everybody.
And
Okay, an interesting chat coming in there from the AI India Impact Summit, which is taking place in New Delhi. Words coming in from TCS as well as Ashwini Vaishnav. But on that note, we're going to take a very short break. We'll come back with more on the news and updates, stock-specific action on the other side. Welcome back to Halftime Report on CNBC-TV18. Nifty as of now, 25,720 levels. Not much of a move that is coming in there for the Nifty as of now. But moving on to what's happening in the world of commodities. We have BHP, the biggest copper producer and mining company, says that they are planning a 3-stage $18 billion investment and that the company expects 5% growth driven by 4 global mega projects. My colleague Manisha Gupta caught up with Ragnar, Chief Commercial Officer of the company, and began by asking about the company's outlook. Listen in.
If you look at our copper growth over the last 3 years, you've seen a 30% uplift in copper production through organic options in terms of more productivity at our sites. Obviously, the acquisition of Oz Minerals over the last few years, which has timed very nicely with a rise in copper price to high $5, low $6 a pound prices. Now, moving forward for ourselves, we have such an exciting portfolio, 4 mega projects established globally, one in Argentina that we've announced a lot of details today on Vicuña with the potential to grow to 800 million tons a year over the next decade. Escondida, major growth plans in place in Chile, options in South Australia, and also options in America. What that means is potentially a 5% CAGR for the next decade in our copper business, which, given the supply-demand fundamentals for copper, and particularly given that demand seems to be ubiquitous in terms of mega trends around urbanization, trends around decarbonization, trends around technology, this is an excellent commodity and well-placement for ourselves.
Rag, when you talk about Argentina, it's not just about copper. We're looking at gold and silver mining projects there as well. What is the multi-year investment number that you're looking at in Argentina, and what really are the plans in that country?
What we've announced today basically is a 3-stage investment, with the first stage actually being about $7 billion. That would contribute to us producing just over 300,000 tons of copper from a deposit called Jose Maria. Stages 2 and 3 would cost an additional $11 billion, taking it to $18 billion all up, with the potential to take that deposit to over 800,000 tons of copper a year, and sizable copper, gold, and silver contributions coming from that as well.
Rag, just coming back to copper yet again, and we've seen record high numbers onto that one on COMEX in Shanghai, in the Indian markets, and LME as well in this year for the month of January. How are you looking at copper prices going from here? What are the demand estimates that you're putting? A lot of this seems to be AI driven. What's your sense?
I think that demand for copper is a thematic that is ubiquitous across just about every growth trend. So whether it's urbanization, which we continue to see across the globe, whether it's electrification for decarbonization, we're seeing incredible demand levers in that area. And you're right, we see AI and data centers starting to contribute to more demand for copper as well. What that means is we believe that copper demand will continue to grow somewhere between 2 and 3% for the foreseeable future against a world market where supply is looking a lot more difficult to find. It doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're in, it is difficult to actually bring on these copper mines, whether it's through access, permitting, or actually discovering the deposits. And so for BHP, why this is such a differentiator is we have 40 billion tons of copper ore greater than 0.5% copper, the largest global endowment of copper. For us to bring on those options in organic methods over the next decade or so sets us up very, very well to meet that demand need.
Rag, what would you say is the BHP's copper production forecast from here on for this year, for the next foreseeable future, that is?
So over 2 million tons a year this year, and basically, as I mentioned, about a 5% continuous annual growth rate beyond that out till 2035.
How are you also looking at iron ore? I mean, while copper prices have done very, very well and the markets are looking at a strong potential growth in sense of demand, as you mentioned as well, iron ore has been a bit of a spoiler, would you say? Not too much of a movement there. And suddenly, previously, we've seen very strong higher prices and volatility. Would you say the last 12 months didn't really do a lot in sense of performance?
I think that's a bit harsh. If I take a look at iron ore prices, $100 a ton is actually a relatively healthy market and actually higher than what we saw going back 12 months ago for the same half period. Now, what I believe is going to transpire over the future is we continue to see China producing at about 1 billion tons of steel production a year. We also see India growing. So India is such an exciting jurisdiction in terms of steel production, producing just over 160 million tons last year, potentially growing to 500 million tons by 2050. That's against basically supply where, yes, we are seeing additional supply starting to enter into the market. But as I've mentioned in the past, the reality is this: as new supply comes in, we expect depletion will address some of that new supply coming in, one. And then secondly, we expect high-cost producers to actually come out of the market as well. Now, for BHP particularly, we are the world's lowest cost iron ore producer, with our C1 cost sitting just under $18 a ton. And what that means is that we, in a market even with $100 a ton revenue source, we are just making a significant margin above our next nearest competitor. In point of fact, the differential between ourselves and our next nearest competitor is about $10 a ton in terms of free cash flow.
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Halftime Report on CNBC TV18. Well, just pull up the Nifty PSU Bank Index, because that seems to be the one which is really outperforming at this point in time. If you look at it, it's up around 1.3% currently for the Nifty PSU Bank Index. And a lot of the stocks are doing well within that entire space. So if you just look at a couple of the Nifty stocks in terms of the banks, we have, SBI, which is managing to hold up with a gain of around 0.5%. If we extend it to the private banks, that too is doing well. So Axis is up around 1%. But there's a clear divergence or outperformance which is coming in for the Nifty PSU Bank Index as compared to the Nifty Bank at this point. But on that note, we need to wrap up and business lunch on the other side. Stay tuned.